Hey Reddit, I've been a long-time lurker on this sub, absorbing all the deliciously crafted revenge stories. Never thought I'd have one of my own to contribute, but here we are. This isn't about petty revenge, it's about justice served cold, meticulously, and with extreme prejudice. Buckle up, because this is a ride. Let me set the scene. I'm Leo, 27M. For the past 6 years, I've been working as a lineman, which means I spend my days working with power lines, often high up, sometimes in brutal weather. It's tough, physically demanding, but it pays well, and I'm good at it. When I'm not working, a big part of my life revolves around Muay Thai. I've been practicing since I was 11 years old. My uncle, a former professional fighter, taught me the ropes. He always drilled one thing into my head: technique beats muscle every single time. After 15 years of training, countless hours in the gym, sparring, conditioning, understanding every nuance of the art of 8 limbs, I was pretty damn confident in my abilities. I wasn't a professional fighter, but I could certainly handle myself. I met Summer, 26F, about 2.5 years ago. She was a receptionist at a medical office building where I was doing some work. She was attractive, confident, always dressed impeccably, and had this air of being high maintenance, which, I admit, initially drew me in. There was something intriguing about her. We started dating, and after about a year, things seemed serious enough that we decided to move in together. It was a nice, 2-bedroom apartment, good location, and we split everything down the middle. At first, things were great. We had fun, went out often, and I thought we were building something real. But slowly, subtly, cracks began to appear. Summer, who had never shown much interest in fitness, suddenly got really into going to the gym. She'd spend hours there, always talking about her new workout buddy or personal trainer. She also started making subtle, almost throwaway comments about my job. "Do you really enjoy climbing those poles all day, Leo? It seems so sweaty." Or about my training. "You spend so much time at the gym with your uncle, don't you get bored of just, like, hitting things?" It was never outright criticism, but it always had this underlying tone of dissatisfaction, as if my life wasn't sophisticated enough for her. I brushed it off, attributing it to her trying to be helpful or just her high-maintenance personality. Big mistake, clearly. It was a Saturday, about 6 months ago. I'd had a particularly long and grueling shift. We'd been out fixing storm damage since before dawn, and I was exhausted, grimy, and ready for nothing more than a hot shower and a cold beer. I pulled into our apartment complex, feeling the ache in my muscles, but looking forward to unwinding. I opened the front door, and the first thing I noticed was the faint smell of massage oil? And something vaguely floral. Odd. Then I heard voices from the living room. Summer's, high-pitched and giggly, and a man's voice, deep and booming, punctuated by sharp, rhythmic grunts. I walked into the living room, and the scene that greeted me is burned into my memory. Summer was in tight workout clothes, leaning back against the couch, giggling. And standing in front of her, shirtless, flexing, and striking what I can only describe as incredibly goofy, exaggerated karate poses, was a man I'd never seen before. He looked like he'd bought a Karate for Dummies book and thought he was ready for the big leagues. His movements were stiff, his balance terrible, and his key eyes sounded like a dying walrus. On the coffee table, next to a half-eaten box of expensive chocolates, was an open bottle of massage oil. My exhaustion vanished, replaced by a sudden, icy clarity. I stood there for a beat, letting the absurdity of the situation sink in. The man, clearly trying to impress Summer, was so engrossed in his performance that he didn't even notice me until I cleared my throat. He froze mid-lunge, spinning around to face me. He was a few inches taller than me, bulkier, but I could tell instantly he was all show, no go. His eyes narrowed, trying to look intimidating. "Who are you?" he demanded, puffing out his chest. Summer, meanwhile, had gone from giggling to looking absolutely terrified. Her face was draining of color. "Leo, what are you doing home?" I ignored her. My gaze was fixed on Mr. Karate Master. "I live here," I said, my voice calm, flat. "Who are you? And what exactly is going on?" Mr. Karate Master, clearly trying to assert dominance, took a step forward. "I'm Marcus," he puffed, striking another ridiculous stance. "And I'm a 3rd-degree black belt in Shotokan Karate. You'd be wise to back off." He said it with a smirk, clearly expecting me to be intimidated. A small, almost imperceptible smile played on my lips. Oh, this was going to be fun. Shotokan, huh? And a third-degree black belt who clearly couldn't even throw a proper punch. My uncle's voice echoed in my head, technique beats muscle, Leo. Always. Marcus, clearly misinterpreting my calm as fear, decided to double down on his intimidation. He started to circle me, his eyes fixed, trying to look menacing. You want to stick around, pal? You won't like what happens next. Before I could even respond, he decided to make his move. He launched into what I immediately recognized as a poorly executed crane kick, one of those flashy, cinematic moves that looks cool in movies but is utterly impractical in a real fight. His balance was off, his leg was too high, and his core was completely disengaged. It was telegraphed a mile away. I didn't even have to think. My body moved on instinct, 15 years of training kicking in. I took a single, almost lazy sidestep, letting his poorly aimed kick sail harmlessly past my head. As his leg extended past me, leaving him unbalanced and exposed, I pivoted smoothly. My knee came up, precise and powerful, straight into his solar plexus. Thwack. The air left his lungs in a sudden, violent gasp. His eyes bulged, and his face contorted in a comical mix of shock and agony. The third-degree black belt crumpled to the floor, clutching his chest, gasping like a fish out of water, desperately trying to pull air into his collapsed lungs. He writhed for a few seconds, then lay there, whimpering, utterly incapacitated. Summer shrieked. Marcus! Oh my God! Leo! What did you do? She rushed to Marcus's side, ignoring me completely. I stood over Marcus, who was still gasping, a picture of pathetic helplessness. I showed him, I said calmly, that flashy moves don't mean anything when you have no technique. And I showed him not to try that nonsense in my home. Summer scrambled back to her feet, her face red with fury, ignoring Marcus for a moment. Get out, she screamed at me, pointing to the door. Get out of my apartment, you psycho. I raised an eyebrow. My apartment, Summer. Half of it is mine. My name is on the lease. My money pays for half the rent. My clothes are in that closet. You can get out. Or Marcus can. Or both of you. Summer just stared, her mouth open, speechless for a moment. The shock of my calm authority, mixed with the sight of her karate master whimpering on the floor, seemed to short-circuit her. Summer quickly tried to pivot, switching to gaslighting mode. Leo, baby, it's not what it looks like. We were just stretching. Marcus is my gym buddy, he was just showing me some moves. The massage oil was for muscle soreness. You know how I get sore after workouts. She was desperate, scrambling for excuses, trying to act like nothing was amiss. I just looked at her, a cold, hard glint in my eye. Summer, I said, my voice utterly devoid of emotion, I'm not an idiot. And I'm certainly not pathetic or desperate. I paused, letting the words hang in the air, knowing they would resonate. I had subtly overheard her describing me as such to a friend a few weeks prior. You two can enjoy the rest of your workout. I'm out. I calmly walked into our bedroom, grabbed my duffel bag, and started throwing in essentials. Summer followed me, still babbling about how innocent it was, how I was overreacting. I just kept packing. The truth was, I hadn't been entirely surprised by what I'd found. Summer's increasing secrecy, the strange comments, the sudden gym obsession, I'd had a gut feeling for months that something was wrong. So, for the past 2 months, I had been quietly apartment hunting. I had found a perfect little place, signed the lease just last week, and had already started moving some of my less essential belongings there. I had been planning a quiet, clean break. This simply accelerated the timeline. As I zipped up my bag, I pulled out my phone. Oh, and by the way, Summer, I said, dialing, I'm calling the landlord right now. To remove my name from the lease. You'll be solely responsible for the full rent from next month. Hope your gym buddy can help you out with that. Her jaw dropped. You can't, she shrieked. You wouldn't. I smiled, a genuine, cold smile. Watch me. I spoke briefly with the landlord, confirmed my intention to remove my name, and told him Summer would be taking over the full financial burden. He was understanding. I then walked back into the living room, past a still whimpering Marcus and a now furious, stunned Summer. Enjoy your apartment, I said, walking out the door for good. I left her with nothing but her belongings, the full weight of the rent, and her whimpering karate master. I moved into my new apartment fully, enjoying the sudden peace and quiet. I spent my free time renovating the place, training even harder, and generally rediscovering what it felt like to be happy. Summer, meanwhile, predictably started to unravel. She called me repeatedly, begging for financial help, saying she couldn't afford the rent alone, that she was going to be evicted. I ignored her calls. My brother, Jake, 30M, who had always been my closest confidant and knew everything about the situation, was fielding her increasingly desperate calls and texts. He'd just calmly tell her, "Leo's not your bank. This is your problem." Eventually, she was evicted. From what I heard, she had to move back in with her parents, who were less than thrilled. But Summer was just the appetizer. Marcus was the main course. I had known for a while that Marcus was married. He wore a ring, albeit subtly, and sometimes took calls where he'd lower his voice. During my brief, horrifying encounter, I had caught a glimpse of his phone's lock screen background. It was a photo of a woman and 2 kids. I memorized her face. My next step, finding Marcus's wife. It wasn't hard. A quick search of the company he worked for, which Summer had mentioned in passing, cross-referenced with public records and social media, led me to Eleanor, 29F. She was a kindergarten teacher, active in local community groups. She seemed like a genuinely kind person. My stomach turned thinking about what Marcus was doing to her. I spent a few days compiling irrefutable evidence. Screenshots of Summer and Marcus's texts I'd discreetly taken from Summer's phone months prior. Yes, I started gathering receipts when I suspected something was off. The video of his pathetic karate moves I'd recorded, because who doesn't record a cheating side piece trying to impress your girlfriend with fake martial arts? Details about their workout dates, the massage oil. It was all meticulously organized. Then, I contacted Eleanor. I didn't mince words. I emailed her from an anonymous account, briefly explaining who I was, what I knew, and offering undeniable proof. I attached everything. No emotion, just facts. Eleanor responded within hours. She was heartbroken, furious, and grateful. It turns out, she and Marcus had a prenup. A very specific prenup. One that stated if either party committed adultery, the innocent spouse would receive a significantly larger portion of the assets, including the house, and a substantial lump sum payment. Marcus had been so arrogant, so confident she'd never find out, that he'd signed it without a second thought. Eleanor filed for divorce the very next day, citing adultery. Marcus, caught completely off guard, was completely blindsided. The divorce proceedings were brutal for him. He lost the house, most of his savings, and faced a mountain of legal fees. His life, which he had clearly built on a foundation of lies and arrogance, began to implode. Word got back to Marcus, through mutual contacts, that I was the one who had tipped off Eleanor. He was beyond furious. He started sending me threatening messages, calling me names, vowing revenge. I ignored them, but I kept them as receipts. One evening, I was leaving my Muay Thai gym after a particularly intense session. As I walked to my car, I saw them. Marcus, and 2 of his meathead friends, waiting by my car. Marcus looked even more disheveled than the last time I saw him. His eyes were wild. "You ruined my life, you bastard!" Marcus screamed, lunging forward. His 2 friends, clearly just as clueless as him, moved to flank me. I smirked. Some lessons, it seems, need to be taught more than once. Marcus, fueled by rage and desperation, threw a sloppy, wild punch. I sidestepped effortlessly. His friends, thinking they could overpower me with sheer size, charged. What followed was a blur of controlled chaos. I didn't waste any energy. My footwork was precise, my blocks were tight, and my counters were brutal. A quick jab to one guy's solar plexus, sending him reeling. A low kick to the other's thigh, buckling his knee. Marcus, still flailing, tried another wild swing, and I responded with a quick elbow that sent him spinning into his friend, knocking them both down in a heap. It was over in less than 30 seconds. Marcus and his friends were groaning on the pavement, clutching various bruised body parts. I stood there, barely breathing hard. Someone from the gym, who had heard the commotion, had already called the police. When they arrived, Marcus and his friends were still on the ground, looking pathetic. I, on the other hand, was standing calmly by my car, perfectly fine. The police questioned us. Marcus, still arrogant despite his situation, tried to claim I had attacked them. But my gym had security cameras covering the parking lot. The police reviewed the footage. It showed Marcus and his friends clearly initiating the attack, and me acting purely in self-defense, with remarkable restraint. Marcus was arrested on the spot for assault. His friends got off with warnings, but they were certainly embarrassed. The legal process for Marcus was swift. With the security footage, my testimony, and his existing record from his divorce proceedings, which highlighted his temper and deceit, he didn't stand a chance. He was sentenced to 6 months in jail for assault. 6 months. A fitting end for Karate Master. After his release, I heard through the grapevine that he lost his high-paying job. With no assets from the divorce, a criminal record, and a bruised ego, he ended up taking a low-wage retail job. From self-proclaimed karate master to minimum-wage retail worker in a matter of months. Delicious. And Summer? She faced her own consequences. Word of her affair, her role in Marcus's downfall, and her eviction spread through her workplace. She became a pariah. She eventually lost her job as a receptionist. With no job and no apartment, she was forced to move back in with her parents, where she apparently still lives, unemployed and bitter. In a final, almost comical twist, Summer actually tried to reconcile with me a few months ago. She showed up at my new apartment, teary-eyed, talking about how much she missed me, how she'd made a mistake. I calmly listened to her, then my brother Jake, who had been waiting patiently in my living room, stepped forward. "Summer," Jake said, his voice firm but not unkind, "Leo is done. You made your choices. He's happy. You need to move on. This is over." He then escorted her out. "I'm thriving in my new apartment and my training is better than ever. I've reconnected with old friends, and I'm slowly, cautiously, starting to think about dating again, this time, with clear boundaries and a much sharper eye for red flags. Actions have consequences. They learned that the hard way. And the satisfaction of seeing justice served, completely and utterly, is truly unmatched."